Good evening, everyone. I would like to call our board meeting of the 27th of May, 2025 back to order, seeing that we do have quorum present, and acknowledge that we are meeting this evening from various locations in the unceded, unsurrendered ancestral homelands of the Algonquin Nation. I would like to thank the Algonquin people for the knowledge that they have shared with us and for their enduring stewardship of these lands since time immemorial. Are there any, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, does any board member have an interest to declare? And seeing none, I would like to now move on to the report from Committee of the Whole in camera. Trustee Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. The board met in private session this evening and reports and recommendations as follows. That staff proceed as directed in board private session with respect to a matter involving personal information of a member of the OCDSB community. And that concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you. We have had our discussion of this matter in our private session. And I think we should be able to have the motion available for us to vote in eScribe. If Manager Gatley can make sure that the vote is open. Oh, we did have a seconder. Trustee Jenkins seconded the recommendation. And we have the result. The motion has been carried, 11 in favor, none opposed, and no abstentions from among those present. Is there anything else, Trustee Jenkins?
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 7 on our agenda, which is approval of the agenda. Is there a mover for that? Trustee Nash, seconded by Trustee Kaplan-Murth. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And on the agenda as presented, all those in favor and opposed, and that motion is carried. Bringing us to item 8, which is briefing from the chair of the board, and I will now provide my briefing. I would like to begin by highlighting a great event. Maryville High School hosted its first ever community resource fair earlier this month as part of Mental Health Week. This engaging event brought together a diverse array of community organizations and more than 500 students from grades 9 to 12. Organized by dedicated staff and student in the Maryville Minds Matter Club, the fair connected young people with essential support services right in their local community. The community resource fair offered students a crucial reminder that there are many ways to find help when they need it. You can read more about this event on the homepage of our website in the Spotlight section. I would also like to highlight West Carleton Secondary School's Youth Philanthropy Initiative. The final presentations for this year took place last week. This impactful program empowers grade 10 students to research and advocate for local and Canadian charities tackling social issues in our community. This year's successful presentation highlighted Operation Come Home's critical efforts to address youth homelessness in Ottawa. earning them a $5,000 donation from Youth and Philanthropy Initiative Canada. This initiative has been running annually at West Carleton Secondary School for the past 12 years. I commend the students for their dedication and advocacy. And finally, a reminder that the OCDSB is currently reviewing and updating 2 policies. The first policy is the Community Use of Schools policy, which is being revised to align with current priorities and practices and to support good governance and responsible resource use. The second is the Distribution of Communication Materials in Schools policy, which proposes to merge 2 existing policies to ensure materials comply with legislation and support student achievement and belonging. Feedback on both policies is accepted until 4 p.m. on June the 9th, 2025 at engage.ocdsb.ca. And that concludes my briefing. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we can move directly then to the briefing from the director. Mr. Director.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. This summer, the Indigenous Education Team of the district is excited to offer an engaging Indigenous summer learning program for First Nation, Inuit, and Métis students who have completed grade 10 English. This particular program offers a unique opportunity for cultural and academic growth through Indigenous language learning, learning on the land, collaboration and connections with community partners, and the opportunity to earn a grade 11 English credit. Participants will deepen their connection to traditional knowledge, gain diverse perspectives, and advance their academic goals in a supportive and culturally relevant context. For registration and more information, please visit our website. A reminder that tomorrow, May 28th, the OCDSB speech language pathologists are offering a virtual speech and language open house for parents, guardians, and caregivers of children of all ages. This webinar, part of the OCDSB speaker series, will provide information and resources on developing children's communication skills. You will learn how speech language pathologists can support you and your child and discover other supports available at your school site. Please visit the OCDSB website for registration information. That ends my briefing. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the director on his briefing? Is it on? If it's not on the briefing, you can raise it under new business. And I'm not seeing any questions based on the briefing we just had. So we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is delegations. And I would like to call on Jordan LeBlanc regarding the summer learning program. I believe Mr. LeBlanc is with us virtually. Welcome. You have 2 minutes for your delegation. There should be a timer showing on the screen that will show you the time as it counts down. And after your delegation is finished, there will be opportunities for questions from up to 3 trustees for clarification if there's something that you've said that we haven't fully understood. So with that, please go ahead when you are ready. And you're muted right now, I think, or I'm not getting any audio.
Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you
Wonderful.
now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a setting thing, as it always is. Thank you for granting me the time at last minute. My name is Jordan LeBlanc. I'm the co-chair of the Crystal Bay Special Needs Parent Council, one of the special education schools directly impacted by the proposed cancellation of special needs summer programming. I'm here as a voice for children who cannot advocate for themselves, children with profound and complex needs. These are students who require consistency, structure, and specialized support year-round, not just during the school year. For many of them, summer school is not a luxury, it is essential. In these programs, our students are not studying for exams, they're learning life itself. How to safely cross the street, how to express their basic needs, how to use the washroom independently, how to prepare a simple meal. These are foundational life skills that build dignity, autonomy, and safety. For these children, this education is transformative. It will benefit them far more than a neurotypical student trying to use summer school to get ahead in English literature. When you cancel summer programs for students with disabilities, you are not cutting a budget line. You are interrupting vital routines, eroding hard work progress, and placing additional pressures on families already stretched to their limits. It is not a matter of convenience. It is a matter of equity, dignity, and inclusion. We understand the financial pressures the board is under. But let's be honest, targeting students with exceptionalities is the easiest option because they won't show up. There aren't enough parents to show up to these microphones to make an issue of it. They won't organize protests, they won't flood your invoices, and that's we as caregivers, educators and allies must speak for them. We are the voice for the children who have no voice. Cutting services for students with disabilities might seem efficient on paper, but it reflects a deeper issue, systematic ableism. It may save money, but it is not the moral choice. We urge you to rethink this decision, not just as trustees, but as human beings. These children deserve our protection, our investment, and an unwavering commitment, not just because it's convenient, but always. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you tuning me in.
And thank you very much for your delegation. Are there any questions for Mr. LeBlanc? Trustee Kaplan-Murth?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for your delegation. My heart goes out to families having to advocate about this yet again. Can I just ask, because you mentioned that you're, I think, co-chair for Crystal Bay. And,
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And we've heard from Clifford Bowie as well. How did families hear about this, and what is this doing in terms of the effect on families right now?
So I'll answer it in the best way I can. We heard rumors about this a few months ago that once again the summer learning program was on the chopping block. To be honest, I thought there's no way. we just all appeared in front of this group 2 years ago to advocate again for it not to be cut. We actually heard through the grapevine, through one of the parents who heard it through the grapevine, who heard it on Facebook. And we circulated some emails amongst our school council. We did not hear it through formal means. This was very much an informal thing. Parents are devastated by this. I can't express enough how much this program benefits our most exceptional students. And I know it's expensive. I get it, but this is a wonderful program. Our children really benefit. And for some parents, this is really a way to really see their children advance when being home all summer will do nothing but hurt them. So I really urge you to just consider how much this program impacts and is beneficial for students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. LeBlanc? And I'm not seeing any, but please feel free to continue to watch us on the live stream, and you will hear the full discussion when we reach that motion on our agenda tonight. And thank you very much.
Thank you again for your time, and I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Moving on then to the next item on our agenda, we are at confirmation of board minutes from the 22nd of April's 2025 special board meeting, the 29th of April 2025 board meeting, and the 13th of May 2025 special board meeting. Would someone like to move all three sets of minutes? Trustee Jennings, seconded by Trustee Lyra. And are there any errors or omissions in any of these sets of minutes? And if you do have something to raise, please specify which minutes and which page. And I'm not seeing any errors or omissions being raised. So I will go directly to call the question on confirming these three sets of minutes, 22nd April, 29th April, and 13th of May, 2025. All those in favor? And opposed? And that motion is carried. Is there any business arising from any of these minutes? And seeing none, that brings us to item 13.1, matters for action, beginning with receipt of the Policy Review Committee report from the 15th of May, 2025. And I will call upon Trustee Lyra.
Thank you. I'm happy to move receipt of the Policy Review Committee report.
And do we have a seconder for receipt? Trustee Forty. Are there any errors or omissions in this report? And I'm seeing no hands raised. So on receipt, all those in favor of receiving the Policy Review Committee report and opposed, and that motion is carried. Trustee Lyra.
In this report, you will find a motion by Trustee Forty, which I will second, that policy P.054.HS, Workplace Safety and Insurance, attached as Appendix A to Report 25-029, be rescinded.
And I will ask, is this a consent item? And I'm seeing no objection to having it as a consent item. We will deal with it when we have finished with the other reports that we are receiving. Next up, we have receipt of Committee of the Whole report from the 20th of May, 2025, and I will call upon Trustee Milburn.
I will now move receipt of the May 20th, 2025 Committee of the Whole report.
And do we have a seconder for that report? Trustee Nash, thank you. Are there any errors or omissions in the report from Committee of the Whole 20th of May? And seeing none, I'll call the question on receipt. All those in favor of receipt and opposed? And that motion is carried. And in your report, are there any recommendations?
There are no recommendations this evening from that report.
No recommendations from the 20th of May. And that brings us to the end of our main action items. And we have just one that was a consent item to vote on. And I will ask if Manager Gottlieb could please open the vote in eScribe for the motion from the Policy Review Committee.
I'm sorry, Chair. It's not popping up on me on my screen, and I do have my eScribe open.
So you are voting in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. And we have a result. The motion is carried. 12 in favor, none opposed. And that brings us then to item 13.3, which is the notice of motion regarding the summer learning program from Trustee Blackburn. And before I call on Trustee Blackburn to introduce this, some of you have seen emails during the day inquiring whether or not this motion is in order. I have looked very carefully at our bylaws, and I believe that it is in order because there is new information that we will be hearing about this evening. Trustee Kaplan-Meier, did you have a question?
Well, that was my question, whether this was in order, because I think a decision was made around trying to bring up the police issue again, which at the time,
No,
Michelle
this has nothing to do with.
No, I know that it
with
doesn't, but at the time, it was the same sort of issue of bringing back a motion that we had already decided upon. and it was deemed out of order because there was no new substantive information. We had already made decisions, and in this situation, there is nowhere that's presented that indicates that there's new information where we've already voted on this in 2023 and 2016.
That does not preclude it being on the floor, but in order for us to decide that it should be rescinded, we will want to assess the new information that has come available over the last number of years. So I am ruling it in order, and as long as there is no challenge to the chair, we will move to Trustee Blackburn for her introduction.
Can I just ask as a point of, what would a challenge to the chair look like?
I beg your pardon?
What would a challenge to the chair look like? How would we challenge you?
You can challenge the chair's ruling that it is in order. And if that is the case, I will clarify why I believe that it is in order, and the board will vote on whether or not to uphold my ruling.
All right, I would like to challenge the chair. I'd like to see in the bylaws where it specifically says that we can do this in terms of governance, voting on an issue we already decided.
So we do have a challenge to the chair. My ruling that the motion is in order is based on the fact that there is new information available, which I expect to be presented in the course of our discussion and debate. And that is my ruling. So I will call the question. When we have a challenge to the chair does not vote, and the motion fails. The motion, if there were a tie, the motion would still be approved, I think. I think I got that right. And staff are saying I did get that right. So on that, I will call the question on those in favor of upholding the chair's ruling. And those opposed. And I'm looking to see hands on the screen. Okay. So the challenge to the chair has not succeeded. The chair's ruling has been upheld, and we go to Trustee Blackburn for her introduction. Well, let her put it on the floor before we get a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I'd like to move my motion, please.
Could you read the motion, please? Just the motion.
Certainly, Madam Chair. That the 2016 motion is hereby rescinded such that as of 25-26 financial year, there is no specific obligation to maintain the summer learning program or to use resources traditionally allocated to this program in any particular manner.
And do we have a seconder for that recommendation? Trustee Lee will second that. Please go ahead with your introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I want to be very clear to my colleagues and to those listening this evening. I did not want to bring forward this motion, but it is my view that having a motion on the books that obligates the board, the district, to spend money in perpetuity is not good governance. Since 2016, a substantial amount of things have changed. The board now has no reserves to draw upon. We are running deficits year over year at this point, and what we are doing is not sustainable. This is a program that we don't spend tens of thousands of dollars on, my colleagues. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on. This is a significant amount of money. And let's be very clear, this program does not run all summer. It runs for a short period in the summer. And it does not serve our most vulnerable students. And I know we have staff from our spec ed department tonight. So it's my understanding that, for instance, if you have a safety plan, you cannot apply to this program. And I brought it forward because we need to be very transparent. I don't know about what conversations my colleagues have with their constituents, but it breaks my heart every time I have to tell a parent, I'm very sorry, your child can't go to school all day, every day, which is their right from September to June, because we simply don't have enough supports. If we keep running this program, those conversations will continue to happen. I believe that I have to do everything in my power to ensure that all kids get an education from September to June that they are legally entitled to have and are not getting at this time. My motion doesn't stop staff from doing anything in the summer. It just unties staff's hands to be obligated by a motion that was passed in 2016. That's 9 years ago. And obviously things change over that time, and they have changed substantially. And so my colleagues, for me, this motion is about good governance. It's about fiscal responsibility. It's about equity, and it's about fairness. Sadly, whether we like it or not, my colleagues, we do have competing interests. We have a lot of competing interests. We have a lot of students with a lot of needs. But our obligation, our mandate, is to provide an education to all students between September and June. That is our mandate. And yes, I know that summer school will be brought up. Every district in the school in the province of Ontario offers summer school for high school students, etc. That is fully funded by the ministry, and all boards do that. The reason why this program isn't funded by the ministry is because, to my knowledge, no other board offers it. So this program is outside our mandate, and there was a time when perhaps we could afford to do it, maybe back in 2016 when we had substantial reserves or when we were running surpluses, which we haven't been doing lately. And hopefully when we go back to that, or again, I have no idea what staff is going to recommend in their budget, but we cannot have a motion on the books that ties our staff to spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a program that is not within our mandate. Those are my opening remarks, Madam Chair. I look forward to a respectful debate. And before that debate begins, I would like to hear from both our CFO, Madam Chair, and from our Superintendent of Spec Ed about the impact of continuing to run this program on what we can do and what we cannot do between September and June. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Blackburn. And I will look first to our CFO, the Associate Director for Business. Trustee Blackburn, which order would you like to hear from them in?
I think I'd like to hear from Superintendent Stout first, and then if the CFO has anything to add, I'll leave that up to him to decide.
In that case, I will go first to Superintendent Stout.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. My apologies for not being there in person. I'm here with General Manager Emily Bala as well, who oversees the summer learning program at this time. I think that as the trustees indicated, Trustee Blackburn indicated, this program, we recognize it serves a certain group of students throughout 3 weeks of the summer. And I think that from the time that this was started to where we are now, things have changed. I believe that there certainly are many factors that impact our ability to run this program in such a way that allows us to continue in the manner that we have been. And so if I think about the reality of what this motion is bringing forward, it is giving us the opportunity to have some flexibility in looking at what we can offer throughout the summer and if that is something that we can continue to do. There are ongoing, and this is historical in nature. There are issues when it comes to finding the number of staff that we need in addition to the qualified staff that we need for this program. I think there are also issues around equity of access. As the trustee indicated, we are unable to support all of the students who would potentially meet the criteria. And that means that when it comes to equity of access, not all are accessing this particular program at this time. There are a lot of benefits to the program and pros to the program, and that some students do get to continue to access programming for 3 weeks in the summer. However, as we've discussed, that is not necessarily the mandate. And when it comes to the $610,000 that we give to that program, that we spend out of our money that we are intended to use throughout the entire school year from September to June, it is taking away from our ability to allocate those resources differently.
And turning then to AG Jarwa.
Through you, Chair. I think Trustee Blackburn said it very well. We have a bit of a structural deficit problem here. I made a commitment when I came here to do my best to align revenues and expenses and show the trustees areas where I think we needed to make some choices. And I'm not advocating that we perfectly align special ed expenses with the revenues. I think all boards are overspending, but we do, as part of our financial governance responsibility, we do need to set some boundaries in some of these areas. And, you know, the OCDSB is in a spot where we need to make some tough choices. We're overspending over $14 million on special education, and we have a lot of programs where we're overspending. And it's just being demonstrated in our deficit situation that this is not sustainable to continue to spend. And I hear a lot from the trustees, we'll cut more out of admin, cut more out of other places, but we've been doing that. We've gotten to the point where I briefed the trustees on this, but I'll say it publicly, we almost didn't make payroll at one point because of cuts that we've made to admin staff and over the years and our current staffing levels. There's no easy place to make these decisions, and we have a responsibility to run the organization as well. We have a lot of programs that are kind of considered somewhat Cadillac in our organization, with the SPCs is a more expensive model that most other boards in the province don't run. We have other programs that we support our students with that are more expensive, and we have to make some tough decisions. I think we need to change the way we do business in certain areas. We can't keep them all and have a balanced budget, and that's part of the responsibility. So passing this motion today is not cutting the program forever in the future, but it's freeing up the staff to make recommendations in the budget that will help us give the trustees an opportunity to pass a balanced budget. So, and I'd also like to pass on that we are working with our community members for an alternative. We do have a third party that's somewhat interested in potentially providing this program in the future. And I'm not promising that we'll have that in place for next summer, but we are working with our community partners to try to bridge this gap, because we know that some parents would like this option. So that's what I'd like to say about it.
Thank you for that. You did have a little more time left if you wanted to use it, Trustee Blackburn, or not at this time.
I'm fine. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Turning next then, I have Trustee Kaplan-Murth, followed by Trustee Nash. Trustee Kaplan-Murth, and remember, everybody, we're at board 5 minutes once in the round.
Shouldn't this be
Point of order.
committee rules, because we didn't have an opportunity to debate this at committee?
Point of order. This should be in committee rules because we didn't have a chance to discuss this at committee.
Notices of motion would not go to committee. This could not go to committee because it was a board motion to be rescinded, and the only place it can be dealt with is properly is at board, I believe.
The bylaws say that motions that come directly to board and don't go through committee are debated in rules of committee.
In that case, if we are going to rules of committee, we will need a decision to do that. Or we will simply just do it. Okay. In that case, we are in rules of committee, and that means that we have 3 minutes to speak. We were in board a minute ago, so Trustee Blackburn had her 5 minutes, so we are now in 3 minutes to speak, and people may speak more than once.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So if I could rewind the video of our conversations about this in 2023, I think that we would be satisfied that there was nothing that was said this evening that is new information. Our structural deficit is not new. In 2023, when we objected to the summer learning program being proposed as a way to make financial savings in our budget discussions. It was very clearly decided amongst the trustees who then existed. Now we are a different group of trustees. It feels manipulative to bring back a discussion that we already had and already voted on. There is nothing new in arguing that we have limited resources that could be spread elsewhere. Of course, that's always true. It's inappropriate and disrespectful to the families of the children who have the most severe developmental and physical disabilities to suggest that they're taking up more than their fair share of resources. I can guarantee you as a physician that they will always be struggling in terms of resources. We have a commitment that we made in 2016 and that we made again in 2023 to absolutely support these students and these families. And I understand that my colleagues around the table didn't want to participate in challenging whether or not this is valid, but there is not any new information that has been provided tonight. There is not any new information that's been provided in terms of our finances. There is no new information in terms of decision-making around how we support students with special needs. We have a commitment in our strategic plan. We have a commitment that we have reiterated again and again. We just voted on not cutting special education programs for other students. This is the same. This is a program that we absolutely cannot ask these families to keep coming back and defending the meager contributions that we make to them. If it were the will of the board, I would suggest that we could, as a group, pen a letter to the Minister of Education asserting that this is something that should be funded, just as we provide summer school funding for other students. And I would certainly support a motion to write such a letter and to advocate. That is what we should be doing as a board of trustees, not suggesting yet again that we cut funding to these poor families.
Thank you, Trustee Kaplan-Murth. Next, I have Trustee Nash.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. And I certainly appreciate the comments made by trustees around this table and to staff. I want to emphasize that the needs of the students at these two schools are extremely high, and the potential benefit of skill acquisition during the summer is equally significant. From my visit to Crystal Bay, I know that the majority of students are nonverbal. I recall Principal Ferguson sharing a story about a student who was not expected to learn to read, but thanks to new technologies and improved understanding of how these students learn best, that student is now reading. The lifelong impact of such progress cannot be overstated. In 2024, the district presented a report to this board specifically about Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie, which included a number of recommendations. Where do we stand on implementing those recommendations? Before rescinding this, agreeing to rescinding this motion, I want to hear from the district as to where we stand on these recommendations. I'd also like to hear if there's also a possibility of extending the school year for these two schools as a viable option, something that I've heard from staff. are there also opportunities to collaborate with other boards? I heard something to that effect, that there may be some discussion with some of our community stakeholders, but certainly I'd like to have some sort of information note on the current program, on the participation numbers, how it currently falls short or is supporting our students, and how we could look to other areas to provide such needed support to these students.
Were you addressing your question to staff for some answers on any of that?
Yes.
Mr. Director?
Certainly, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Stout just to give some context with respect to the numbers in the program, as well as any of the follow-up from a previous report.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just looking for the mute button. Thank you, Trustee Nash. So certainly happy to bring forward information on some of the recommendations that came forward from that report. I will be honest and say I believe that's somewhat separate from this particular discussion. And so I'm happy to bring back an update through a memo to the trustees regarding the review that was done a few years ago on that. In terms of collaboration with other boards, I will say that historically this program was a collaboration with the coterminous board in our district, and many years ago they removed themselves. They're no longer in partnership with us, and so at that point the decision was made that we would continue to run the program solely for our own students. So I believe that collaborations have been explored, and while I haven't had a recent conversation, and I'm happy to reach out to the coterminous board to see if there's any interest in that collaboration, I believe that at the time the decision was that this wasn't, as we were discussing, necessarily in the mandate of the school board to offer a summer program like this. In terms of extending the school year for these particular students, I don't have any information on that at this time. I'll have to go do a little bit more information seeking for that. Oh, sorry. And then just to share the numbers. So this year for the upcoming summer, we are going to have around between 200 and 210 students participating in the program.
Through you, Madam Chair, the only pieces I would add is just a reminder to the Board of Trustees that we are speaking not about the current summer we're heading into, but for next summer, not the next few months. Just wanted to add that context to the Board of Trustees around this matter.
Trustee Nash?
Again, I guess from my perspective, when it comes to Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie, the needs are so great. If we're going to remove something, I like to see something else offered. So I am looking to the report that was made and its recommendations and see where we can possibly respond to those recommendations. And again, as I say, the option of extending the school year for these schools, which I certainly would like to see if that's a viable option, because the needs are extremely great and the benefits are extremely impactful for these students. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nash. Moving on then to Trustee Forty.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I guess my question was around how many students are being served in this program. So we've heard that's around 200 students. I'm just curious, does that represent most of the students that are already enrolled in this school during the school year? How many students are not being served by this program then?
And I'm assuming that's directed at Superintendent Stout.
Yes, I apologies again. I can't see Director Buffoni, but I'm assuming that he would prefer I answer the question, so I'll jump in there. So I think it's important to know that students who meet criteria for this program our students who are in either Crystal Bay or Clifford Bowie, as well as students who are in any of our specialized program classes for autism and developmental disabilities. So students who that we have set those parameters because we recognize that those are the students who mostly require this kind of support. What I will say though is that there are students who would have similar profiles who we do not open up registration to this program for. The reason for that is that operationally we can't run this program within budget with our previous numbers as was, and therefore opening up to more students would simply be it would mean that we would be turning away more families. So the reality is that operationally, in order to run within the budget that we do allocate to this program, we are having to adjust the numbers, and so there are many students in our school board who would meet criteria for the program who either are not going to have a spot or are not eligible to even apply to the program.
Do we have an idea of how many students we're turning away then?
I don't have that data tonight for you, but I can bring it forward to the trustees in a memo.
Thank you.
And that brings us to Trustee Lyra.
Thanks. I'm going to start by asking which motion from 2016 you are trying to rescind. What is the language of that motion? I have what I think it is, but I wanted to double check.
We will put the language of the original motion up on the screen so that everyone can see it.
Okay, thank you. That is the language I thought we had. I heard that there was an assertion made in the opening that the most needy students are not those who participate. And then I heard from Superintendent Stout that it is the students from Crystal Bay, Clifford Bowie who are the students who get to attend. Can you reconcile those two? Can someone reconcile those two positions? Are there students from Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie who are not eligible to attend? Start with that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll ask Superintendent Stout just to comment once again on clarifying the students who tend to be in the program versus those who may not.
Thanks so much for the question. So yes, there are students both in all of our programs who do not attend, who cannot attend, and that is based on criteria that we have to set. So if a student requires direct support for safety, so if they have a safety plan, that makes students ineligible to apply, among other things. Would you like to add anything?
I would also add if they have for a one-to-one educational assistant to support them throughout the day, those students would not be eligible, as well as those that cannot take transportation, group transportation. So that is another significant criteria for us when looking at applications.
The students in those three groups, those that cannot take transportation, those that need one-to-one support, and those that need a safety plan, would you characterize as those with more needs or fewer needs than the general student population in those schools?
I would characterize them as having more needs.
Okay. I have a question about degradation of behavior of these students over the summer if this program doesn't exist. We see in general, there are behavioral learning loss, behavioral degradation of students over the summer. Is it more pronounced or noticeable for students in this program if this program did not exist?
Through you, Madam. Go ahead, Superintendent Stout.
Thank you. So I would say that I don't have data to this evening for you, and I don't know that we would be able to really gather that information. What I would say is that As we know, transitions for students, both at the end of a school year and then back to school in September, that we experience a variety of needs as students transition to and from those regular routines, certainly. That being said, I think that we also have students within this program, while some of them might attend the school that they are at during the school year, many of them do not. Many of them have to experience a transition to this program, as well as then the transition to the rest of their summer, whatever that will be for the remaining 6 weeks or so, and then back to school in September as well. So I can't speak necessarily to the specific data I might have to speak to that, other than the generic realities of any students transitioning in and out of school during those times.
Okay. How was 17 days chosen? Why 17 days? I know it's in the motion. I'm wondering if you or anyone can speak to the rationale behind why 17 days.
I don't have that answer. I apologize.
Mr. Director?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can speak to that somewhat in that this is a program for which the board does not receive any funding. And so when we look at the amount allocated for this, it's coming out of the regular school year. It's coming out of support that happens between September and June, and that ultimately a calculation needs to be made on the number of days that you would offer a program in the summer. And you can clearly see that we're not able to support students like we would in the context of the regular school year, including the 3 examples that you heard about in a previous question. Then by not only the number of days, how many students we can accommodate in a program that's on a significantly reduced infrastructure across the course of that month, and divide those factors by the amount that's allocated. And it's clearly evident that it wouldn't support the desire to have schooling for every student across the system across July and August. But that's how ultimately the determination's made on the number of days and the number of students for that matter.
Okay. I am of the belief that it is rank hypocrisy to offer summer school for students who want to get ahead in academics and not for students with high special education needs. We are not the ones who made those funding decisions. We are the ones who make the decisions whether or not to continue programs like this. I would like to see a program like this exist for the duration of the summer, because I am of the belief that you see significant learning loss and significant disruption to routine for the students who are enrolled in this program and for all of our high need special education students. The question we have to ask ourselves as a district is, 1, is this motion doing what it is intending to do? Because I see this motion as inhibiting that conversation, the ability to have that conversation. Because right now, everyone is focused on 17 days, everyone is focused on the specific pieces. I think we should be having a conversation as a district about what should our programming for special education students over the summer look like? And then what can we afford to pay to make that happen? And so I have run the clock, but I'd like this conversation to sort of steer us to, does this inhibit our ability to have that broader conversation? That was a question for my fellow trustees, not for staff.
Thank you. And moving on then to Trustee Milburn, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question, is this motion required for staff to recommend cutting this program, and could it not be included in the budget recommendations to propose rescinding this motion and cutting this program should it be a recommendation?
Mr. Director?
Sorry, I apologize, Vice Chair Milburn. Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I don't think I understood.
Sure. So this motion that's in front of us tonight, if it comes out during the budget process that we are recommending to cut this program, could it not be included in the recommendations of the budget to rescind this previously approved board motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, thanks for repeating the question. I think just procedurally, I gather the spirit of the trustee bringing it forward is to deal with the motion that's in place aside from the budgetary process, because there will be a whole other set of factors for consideration. I think it was brought separately in advance because it is a motion from a governance body on an operational matter that prevents part of that discussion happening during the budgetary process unless the motion is dealt with separately. So I suppose it could be brought at the same time, but I think the intent here, and again, the trustee can speak to it, was to address that prior to bringing the budget in whole.
And I can further clarify that it has come to us as a board because as long as the motion is there, staff are bound by the motion so that it basically would prevent them from bringing any significant alterations to what is described in the original motion to the budget process, because the budget committee can't overturn a previous board motion that was approved by the board. So in order for staff to be able to bring us some alternatives, we need to have this particular motion rescinded so that they have a freer hand. Trustee Milburn?
Okay, given that answer, can I please be added back to the speakers list? I need to noodle that information over.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear all of that.
Apologies. Can I be added back to the speakers list, please? Thank you.
And first time speakers, Trustee Presley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. In my opinion, and what I feel is that canceling summer learning programs for students with learning disabilities, it doesn't just impact our students, it also works to undermine our educators. These summer programs that we offer, they offer critical academic continuity for students who are at the most risk of regression. But what they also do is they give educators a unique opportunity to apply specialized strategies in smaller settings, deepen their professional skills, and build stronger relationships with students who often struggle during the regular school year. When we cut a program like this, we lose that momentum for both learners and staff. Educators miss out on meaningful development, collaboration, and the chance to see measurable growth in their students. Instead of scaling back support, I feel that we should be investing in models that empower both students and the professionals who teach them. Given that we don't have any other options at hand for us to provide the support to these students, I'm very hesitant to support this motion. If we were able to have more information from staff regarding, possible alternatives, that may make me a little bit more inclined to consider it. However, based on the facts that we have at hand, I think we would be doing our students and our communities a great disservice in canceling this program and closing that door. Because as we know, our structures don't really allow us to bring forward motions such as this easily and readily. And it's of my opinion that we should be working to continue serving these students, regardless of the financial pressures, because if we cut something that we are already paying for, it's not like the government is going to just turn around and give us that money. We need to act ethically and show our commitment to learning, well-being, and social responsibility. And regardless of the financial pressures, this is something that I personally feel that we are morally and ethically obligated to continue doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Presley. Next speaker of our first time speakers, Trustee Dixon.
Through you, Chair. I guess I'm looking for a little bit clarification because I was under the impression that we wouldn't be cutting the program. We would actually let it go through, and then like next year, once we get the report from finance about everything else, it would come back to us, right? So like this is not, if we vote, we're not saying we're cutting this program completely, unless I'm misunderstanding something, because everybody's saying different things. And I just want more clarification, if you don't mind.
And if you're looking for a response from staff, director, or Superintendent Stout.
Sure, I'll begin and I'll ask the superintendent to clarify any aspects. So Trustee Dixon, appreciate your comment. This doesn't impact the upcoming summer. So this would rescind the motion for the following school year. You're quite right, though, between this spring, summer, and next school year, we've got a budgetary process that is underway, of which in the rescinding of this motion, we wouldn't impact this summer whatsoever. It would be for the following school year. You're also quite right that this is a program offered for which we have no funding. It's funding that we take out from the regular school year to make this work in a somewhat limited manner. So that despite the best intentions, and I know even from a staff perspective, we understand the value of a number of things that happen over the summer, but it's not a funded one for us. And the one element that is a little bit different, of course, is that we are in a financial investigation that is pointing out elements of funding or programs, initiatives for which there isn't ministry funding that comes into question. So this wouldn't impact this summer whatsoever. It would be for the following school year.
Trustee Dixon?
The other question is, come next year, do we have any community members? Because I heard Randy say that we are trying to collaborate with some community members. Do we have anyone particular that is showing interest to be able to collaborate come next year when we look at this, and are we looking to collaborate with other school boards to make this work?
Through you, Chair. So we definitely do have at least one third party that's very interested in coming in and looking at what they could do as far as what they could offer this group of students plus other groups of needy students within the district. They really want to expand their programming. It's a national organization. I don't want to identify it here. I think it's premature to do that, but they have a wide presence across Canada and providing supports of this kind, and they don't feel like they're providing enough support in the Ottawa area in particular. So they are dedicated to exploring options with us. But as you know, this is a complex, starting these kind of programs are complex. You can't guarantee for sure that it'll be ready for next summer, but certainly that would be the intent, is to try to find and work and potentially offer some of our resources to help get this thing up and running. But again, we're too premature to make 100% commitment to that, but we are absolutely dedicated to working with our community partners and trying to find ways to bridge this gap.
Thank you. Those were the questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dixon. I have no other first-time speakers at this point, and that said, I will ask Trustee Jennings if she wouldn't mind taking the chair for a moment.
Go ahead, and Trustee Scott.
Thank you. I appreciated very much the comments of Superintendent Stout with regard to past enrollment, but I did have some additional questions because my understanding was that the actual enrollment had been quite a lot less than 200 students in one of the recent years. Am I mistaken in that?
No, that previously we've actually had more students. This year we are reducing the number to meet our operational obligations.
So how many students did we have in the program last year?
About 270.
Thank you for that clarification. That is more students than I thought were in the summer learning program. And the second question I had related to how we staff that program, because again, my recollection is that we have had some challenges in finding available, appropriate, qualified staff in order to provide the level of support for the students that would be needed. Is that still a problem?
Yes, that is accurate. I think I'll just as a point of clarification, we do staff these programs in the similar ratios as we run during the school year. So that is 1 teacher and 2 educational assistants for the autism programs, and 1 teacher and 1 teacher to 8 students and 2 educational assistants for the developmental disabilities program. So just to be clear, the staffing ratios are the same. I think it's important to note that many of our staff who work during the school year do choose to take their summer vacation. And so the staff that we bring in, while some of them are staff who are familiar with these programs and these profiles of students, they aren't necessarily familiar with the individual students, and they aren't necessarily the staff who work with these students throughout the year. And I think the other thing to note is that while I think for us to find teachers is a little bit easier than for us to find qualified educational assistants for this program. And so there have been years in the past where we've come very close to the timelines and having to make some potentially challenging decisions to not run the program because we do not have enough staff. We haven't reached that point in recent years that I'm aware of. However, I know that that every year it is a struggle to find the staff that to meet the demands that we have to keep the number of staff we need for the program.
Thank you. In terms of funding for summer programming, I know that the funding that the province does provide some level of funding for the credit courses, secondary credit courses that we run for students who have missed credits or who are looking to reach ahead. We also receive several different streams of funding for other supports for some of our students with special education needs, and I believe some of our multi-language learners as well. And we have funding available to support the some summer learning programs for Indigenous students. But are most of those very specific as to which students are to be supported in those kinds of programs, like the transition back to school one that happens in late summer and others like that?
Yes, so I think it's important to recognize this is not a summer school program. And so that's really important because the ministry has a set of criteria for the types of programs that they'll fund, and it's essentially through student enrollment that we receive funding for summer school. So I think that's really an important distinction. What I will say in terms of what we can, in some of the funding that we do get for summer programming, for instance, support for mental health through the summer transition program that you're speaking about, those come through responsive education programs, very specific criteria that are outlined by the Ministry of how we can spend that money. And so, so while we do get funding for special education for summer programming, it is very specific, and this is not one of the areas that the ministry funds.
Thank you for that. And basically, I guess my real challenge is that the original motion tied the hands of staff in terms of the number of days and so on. It didn't say you can't do anything, but what it was very prescriptive in terms of what could be done. And it really allowed little flexibility to staff in terms of, okay, if we do have some funds, how can we best use them here? It also has been the case that over the, 9 years now, since that motion was first approved, over those 9 years, there has been minimal interest from any community partners in coming forward to help support such a program. And although we have regularly had representations to the ministry about the need from the parents have expressed that, and also the board has expressed that from time to time. We have had no response from the ministry suggesting that they are at all interested in funding this. And that's one of the realities, because we have a lot of other high needs students in the system who also need our support, through the school year where we are
Chair
challenged
Scott,
to provide
did you want to go back on as a second time speaker?
I will stop there. Thank you.
All right. And now the chair, back to you then.
Thank you. And that moves us on to second-time speakers, beginning with Trustee Kaplan-Murth.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So what we've just heard, first of all, again, there is no new evidence that has been put forward, and I'm quite certain we're in violation of our bylaws here, even having this discussion. But what we've heard is that there's minimal interest over the last 9 years for any other organization to provide this service. We've heard that these students who have the most significant developmental disabilities and physical disabilities have been referred to as needy students. I quote, we have heard that we are looking for cost-saving measures on the backs of these most vulnerable students. I can go back to, because I have them all organized that way, I can go back to all of the emails that we received in 2023 from families who came here and delegated, but some of the trustees here weren't present to hear from them. And yet we're holding this conversation without having invited those same families to be here. And it is a huge hardship for them to be here, granted, but we haven't even given them that opportunity. We haven't respected them with that. What was originally passed in 2016 was a commitment that the summer learning program would be maintained until such a time as an equivalent educational program in the community could be found. What we're hearing from staff is that we have challenges finding appropriate qualified staff. Where would any other organization find ECE qualified or trained special education staff of the kind of caliber that we already have at Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay? We would not find those. We've also heard that there's some third-party interest. So I'm just going to explain to trustees who may not understand. Third-party means privatization. We're talking about the families who can afford hundreds of thousands of dollars for private care being able to access some sort of summer program. That is anathema to our commitment to equitable access to education. I will also explain to trustees who may not understand that when we rescind this, we are opening it up to be cut as soon as it's put back on the table, and it was already put on the table in 2023, and you can bet your bottom dollar it will be put on the table again. So rescinding it does mean we are saying to those families that we are no longer committed to supporting their children. And we are hearing from staff, we are hearing from every aspect of this that there is no viable alternative out there. There is no other way to support these students. So again, I implore you to take this off the table. And as a parent said to us in 2023, stop bringing these same initiatives that go counter to approved trustee motions again and again.
Thank you, Trustee Kaplan-Murth. Trustee Milburn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been listening intently to the conversation around the table, and I agree with some of the sentiment of what my colleagues have previously said. I feel like I need more information on what programming is possible before I support a motion that leaves this program in an uncertain state. We were previously asked at a budget meeting what our priorities are in the budget for this upcoming year and for the years that are upcoming as the province tightens our purse strings. And I really don't want to see cuts in these types of portfolios. I think it's the right thing to do to offer programming like this. I understand that we're not talking about this upcoming school year and this upcoming summer, but I'm really worried about the uncertain state that supporting this motion will leave it in. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Milburn. And Trustee Lara.
Thanks. I'll put it point blank. If this motion passed, would staff bring a recommendation to end the summer learning program in the 2026-2027 school year? Or the 2026-2027 summer? The summer of 26. That's what I'm looking for.
Director.
Through you, Madam Chair, with respect to this particular endeavor or initiative, or quite frankly, any other for which we as an organization make public commitments, expectations, guarantees, and other without funding, it is the responsibility of staff to bring that to the attention of the governance board. Making those kinds of commitments not only create an expectation in the public that is difficult, but it also almost ensures a number of other community agencies that would have contributed to the support of our students societally step away. They walk right away from it because if it's being covered by an organization that doesn't have the funding for it, why would we ever get involved if we were another organization? That's the issue at stake here. We're running something here that pulls money, and let me be clear, it pulls positions, it pulls supports, it pulls resources from September to June to run something in July that we can't afford and can barely pull off as it is for a limited number of students at a much higher cost than what we can do with that money during the school year. So it is not only a major governance issue that we need to bring to your attention, it is one of the very reasons we're under financial investigation.
Trustee Lara?
I'm going to ask my question again. If this motion is rescinded, is it the intention of staff to bring a budget that removes the summer learning program in the summer of September 26, in the summer of 26?
Again, through you, Madam Chair, I'll repeat, if there's any initiative that staff is running without funding, we would bring it to your attention because we're not funded as an organization to simply have backup money that's at the ready for all. As much as we'd love to be able to come forward and say, look, we've got a windfall, we can run a whole series of things, this would be one of the things that staff would have to consider in amongst other things. Would it mean that we would automatically consider this one? Not necessarily, but with the challenges we have financially, there's a great likelihood we'd bring this forward like we would any other initiative for which we're not funded.
So the question is about a recommendation, not just the attention. So I think the board is well aware that this is not a funded program. We've heard that quite loudly and quite clearly. My question is specifically, is it going to be the recommendation of staff to remove the program, or that this would be the final year of the program as in its current incarnation?
Through you, Madam Chair, not necessarily staff would relook at that, but staff would need to make the trustees aware that if we were running this program, here's the positions we're not able to hire during the school year. Here's the supports we're not able to put in place. So I think there is a reality that with the challenges we have fiscally, that this could come forward. Would it? I'm not sure. It's very difficult to predict what next year's budget would look like. I would like nothing more than to be able to keep running this program and a whole bunch of others for which extra funding could support. But it's not our case right now. It would be disingenuous to say that, oh, don't worry, this would be locked in place forever and ever. Again, this is part of the reason we've got ongoing structural deficit. So not necessarily, but I don't also want to be false about it that we wouldn't consider it because of our challenges.
Okay. I have a question based on a comment by Trustee Kaplan-Murth. There was an insinuation that the person seeking to move into the Ottawa market is a private entity charging significant fees. Without specifically naming the group, can you assure us that it's a public, like a community organization or an institution or a charity, and not a private group?
Through you, Chair, I can confirm that it's an organization that tries to run community-based programs at effective cost for as many members of the needy community that they can provide. They're not a for-profit organization.
Okay, nonprofit or charity. Okay. I'm going to go back to what I talked a little bit about earlier. I think this motion gets in the way of the conversation we should be having, which is what should the programming that we offer these students look like over the summer? And I am of the belief that we should be offering more comprehensive programming than we are for these students over the summer. And so just as you must move the rubble before you can build anew, I am going to support the removal of this motion, not because I don't believe that the program has value, but because I think we need to clear this and then have a conversation with the community partners and with ourselves about what should the programming we offer these students look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lara. I have Trustee Nash and then Trustee Forty. Trustee Nash.
Yes, and thank you, through Chair. Again, it's not the question. Director mentioned, if we can't afford this program, and I understand that, and that these resources would then be used during the school year. Good. We did have a report commission on Crystal Bowie and Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie with a number of recommendations. So if the intention is to use this funding for our students during the school year, again, I would really like to get a note as to how we intend to meet these recommendations going forward. That would certainly help me in my decisions with regards to the summer program, because the needs are just too great for these students. That's the first statement I want to make. Again, I'd like to ask Superintendent Stout if she has numbers for the students from Crystal Bay that participate in the summer learning program.
Superintendent Stout.
Thanks. I don't have the exact breakdown from the two programs specifically, but based on where we do try to have students attend where they go to school. So if you are a Crystal Bay student and you are eligible and you are accepted into the program, then we would have you attend there. So I don't want to give you specific numbers, but the number of students, we have about, I think it's about 80 students at each of our sites, maybe 70 to 80 students at each of our sites. And not all of those students at the sites would be from Crystal Bay, so, or from Clifford Bowie. So last year we had about 70 students from Clifford Bowie, from Bay and Bowie.
Sorry, we're just looking at the numbers, my apologies. But this year we have about 70 students from Clifford Bowie who will be attending the summer learning, Crystal Bay. Yeah.
So is that 70 from Crystal Bay? I just want to.
Sorry, we're just looking at our numbers really quickly, but it looks about approximately 70. But we can follow up with you, Trustee Nash, to give you the specific numbers.
I think what you're getting at is, so I would say it's about 2/3 of the students are from Crystal Bay or Clifford Bowie, and about 1/3 of the students are from our specialized program classes. But again, we'll follow up with all the trustees with those specific numbers after the evening.
Anything further, Trustee Nash?
So would there be a commitment to provide a note in terms of the recommendations from the Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay report as to how we will act on the recommendations?
Yes, I can follow up with a memo to trustees.
That would be follow up, but we have the motion before us tonight for a decision. And so if is that everything, Trustee Nash?
Yes, thank you.
And I have Trustee Forty next.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I find it really interesting that this is a 17-day program. It's offered in July. It's serving 200 students. So we're clearly missing a large group of students, and there were certain groups that were mentioned that cannot access this service. And I'm curious too, because it's offered in July, so there would be a little bit of a learning drop off over the month of August. What I'm seeing is that this is a program that probably could be revisited, probably needs more supports, and in the iteration of it as it is right now, it's quite broken in my eyes. You know, we're not serving all of the students that need to be served. What does that learning in July look like? How does that support students when they're going back to school in September? Should the program be offered in August, for instance, so that they're ramping up to getting back into that school routine? So I'm fully in support of the motion as is tonight, but I do see that there's a need to revisit this type of programming at a much greater level. Thank you.
I'd just like to add a little bit of info just to ensure that there's a fulsome understanding. There are transition programs that do exist. As I said, at every school we have a summer transition program. And so just to reassure you, both Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay do participate in the summer transition return to school programs that we do run throughout the district.
Okay, so then now I have a question on that. If we have a transition program, then do we need a summer program?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So those funds are limited. They are an REP that we do get through the ministry, and we do distribute those funds across the district based on the requests from principals for the number of students that they would be supporting. So what that looks like is we look for interested staff who are willing to support those transition days. They are typically what it looks like is time where staff are in schools for students to come in for a return to school visit. There might be some opportunity to see their classroom, have a tour of the school if they're new, or if they're returning, just remind themselves this is where your new classroom will be. So it's not a fulsome program like a 17-day, full day program, but it is intended to support that transition and to help support families in having those conversations with their children about returning to school and what that routine is, and getting back into thinking about the school for September.
Thank you.
And moving on then, third time speakers list, Trustee Kaplan-Murth.
Thank you. So looking back, I can't believe that we're having a conversation without these parents present. I don't think we would talk about anybody else without them present in this way. But looking back through emails from parents who advocated in 2023, one parent wrote that the OCDSB Learning Support Services approached 127 community agencies for contributions and funding assistance for the SLP, and none were able to provide funding. Therefore, they were asking that we provide this service at minimum for a 17-day duration, that we focus on that we acknowledge that not only are these programs staffed by staff who are already familiar with these students, but there are also the facilities, the equipment appropriate to those children. I don't think people around the room understand what it is to require specific equipment for a child who is nonverbal and potentially has global developmental delays. This is not a child who is just simply struggling with mild learning disability. This is somebody who needs specialized equipment, physical disabilities that require specialized knowledge as well of the educator. The other thing is that the transportation to and from the learning location is very specific for these children. When we're talking about a third party, first of all, we committed that this would not cost anything to parents and guardians. So what is effective cost? I guess I would like to ask, what do people around the room or what do our staff think is a fair, effective cost to charge to these families who are already probably spending somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 a year for the basic care of their children, if not more. So I would like that question answered, please.
Mr. Director.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll begin just with some comments and then turn it over to Associate Director Giroir. I think what Trustee Kaplan-Murth is asking is very complicated because the needs of these students are so diverse. It is the case. I'm not aware of any agency that can run these programs without funding of some sort or another, whether that's funding from the government or a fee base for clients. It is the case that I think running these programs without any kind of a funding source is fictitious in a certain way. It's very challenging and the needs are significant. I don't dispute that whatsoever. I can't speak specifically to what would be the best sort of optimization of that cost. I'll turn it over to the Associate Director or to Superintendent Stout or Manager Bala for a commentary on that, because I do appreciate that the needs as described by the trustee are significant. I don't doubt that whatsoever.
Through you, Chair, I will say that this organization has experience in obtaining grants and different types of funding to help support their programs. We also are looking at a possible solution where we could provide some of our physical infrastructure resources to help support them and provide these programs. So we would try to work with the third party to see what we could provide, what they could generate. But I wouldn't, there's no illusion that there will be some cost to parents to run these programs. I think it would be unfair to say that we'll find funding sources to cover all the costs. But this organization is not in the business of overcharging parents. But again, I think we're too early in the stages of working with this partner to try to figure out what we could do together and try to offer the most reasonable program moving forward. And there's potential that with this partner, it could be different than a 17-day offering. You might see more extended periods of time. You might see different weeks available to different children at different times. That might be helpful in transitioning and things like that. So I think there's a variety of things that we will explore. But again, there's legal issues. There's all kinds of issues that we would need to work through. And I don't think we're there yet.
Thank you. I agree. I don't think that we're there yet. And as Trustee Nash has said, until we see a plan in front of us, something concrete, something that can actually satisfy us that we would be able to support these students, we shouldn't be even debating this. If it were possible to do so, and I think that there is a mechanism, I would suggest that this motion should be sent back until we actually have reports in front of us that give us some of these answers. I do have from a parent that they said that at a cost of $32 an hour per worker per child, 2 hours of equivalent after-school care costs them $128. On PD days, they have to pay 2 workers for 9 hours, which costs them $576. I mean, you can just add it up yourselves, but it's not possible for these families to make do without us. And then we are talking about discriminating between those who have the financial resources and those who do not. I really think that we need to send this back until we have more evidence that we can support these students. We don't first rescind a commitment and then say, we'll figure something out. We know over the last 9 years, we haven't been able to figure it out.
Thank you, Trustee Kaplan-Murth. I have no further speakers at this time, so I will go back to Trustee Blackburn for wrap up. And I think given that we are back at wrap up and you have not spoken during the debate, I think we should go back to board rules for the wrap up, which is 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I said in my introduction, my colleagues, and for those people who are listening, I did not want to bring forward this motion, but I felt I had to, out of a need for us to exercise good governance, for us to exercise fairness, for us to exercise equity. A lot has changed since 2016. I can tell you that. I've been sitting at this table since 2010, and it is only lately, not in 2016 or 17 or 18, but lately, I am regularly having conversations with parents who tell me, and I have to tell them, that they cannot send their children to school all day because we don't have the supports. This, my colleagues, is completely unacceptable. We are a school board. Our mandate is to provide an education to all children from September to June. That is our mandate. That is what we do. Obviously, I would like to support all students all year round, all the time. Obviously, we would all want that. And in a utopian world, we would do that. But we don't live in utopia. We are a school board. We are trustees. We are governors. And unfortunately, we have competing interests. We have tough decisions to make. We have in the summer learning program an unequitable program that's getting more inequitable. It's serving less and less students every year. And then that inequitable program is causing inequities and unfairness during the school year. It's just not sustainable. And obviously, if you read the motion that was passed in 2016, it says We will do this in perpetuity until somebody else steps up to do it. Well, why would anybody step up to do anything if they know we're just going to keep doing it in perpetuity? It's a bad motion. From a governance perspective, that's a very, 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 very badly written motion. And I know the history behind that, and we won't get into that tonight. But again, we need to untie the hands of our staff. We need to, while the ministry is looking very, very carefully at us and whether or not this board is fiscally responsible, we need to actually be fiscally responsible. And my colleagues, in my opinion, being fiscally responsible means not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a program that we're not mandated to do. It means not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in the summer and impacting the education of hundreds, if not thousands of students from September to June, which is when we are obligated to provide an education to students. We can't go to the ministry and say, we need more money, and then say, but we have this hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on a program you don't fund us for. So we have to be, we have to conduct ourselves in a responsible way. And again, I didn't want to bring forward this motion. Obviously, I feel very badly, and it tears at my heartstrings that we have students anywhere who aren't getting their needs met, all of their needs met. But that's the reality. And that, my friends, is not on us as a Board of Trustees. That's on the Ministry of Community Social Services. That's on the Ministry of Education. We're not the only board who is badly underfunded in Spec Ed. And I hope that we will continue to work with OPSPA, who continues to work with the ministry to get more funding. I hope parents throughout the province continue to pressure their MPPs to get the students the funding that we need. But we cannot afford to continue to spend money that we are not mandated to spend. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Blackburn. And so I will ask Manager Gatley, please, to open the vote on the recommendation, which is that the 2016 motion is hereby rescinded such that as of the 25-26 financial year, there is no specific obligation to maintain the summer learning program or to use resources traditionally allocated to this program in any particular manner.
Through you, Chair, my scribe is still not popping up.
Can you just say how you're voting then?
In favor.
Thank you. And we have the result. The motion is carried with 7 in favor and 4 opposed, no abstentions. There are only 11 of us here. Thank you, Trustee Blackburn, for bringing that forward. We will now move on to matters for discussion, beginning with the report, if any, from the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority, OSTA. Trustee Lee.
Just a quick note for trustees and community members that starting next year for students who are in public transit, there's going to be a new student transit pass as opposed to Presto cards. No effective change operationally in terms of using it and getting transit to schools, but it's just a different card that's going to be in effect next year.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Trustee Lee? And I'm seeing none. In that case, we will move on to the report from our OPSPA directors, if any. Trustee Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder that the upcoming OPSPA annual general meeting will be held June 12th to the 14th, and all trustees are invited to attend.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Trustee Jenkins? And I'm seeing none. We do have our board work plan at item 15 on our agenda, which has again been updated. We have no new matters for information, trustee Kaplan-Murth.
Well, I don't know if new business or new information, but I want to be added to the end, please.
Sorry, concerning which?
New business.
Oh, new business, okay. So that brings us to new business, and I will go to trustee Kaplan-Murth.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have a few questions. One is a question that we forgot to raise in a previous meeting, which was to ask the director about the update on immunizations. We never got an update in terms of how many students were suspended for not meeting their immunization requirements. I also wanted to just tack on there a reminder to people that there are measles outbreaks in Ontario, and that all children, if they haven't had 2 doses of their vaccine, should have their 2 doses as soon as possible, as well as staff, anybody basically born from the 70s and before who don't know whether or not they've had their measles vaccine, they are eligible to get their vaccine straight away. So that's my first question. Then I have more.
Mr. Director.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Kaplan-Murth, I'll follow up with Associate Director Reynolds with respect to our numbers on immunization. I do know we sent out the Ottawa Public Health reminder to families, but I don't have the numbers exactly offhand. We'll send that through as a memo to all trustees.
Thank you. My next question is around the closure of the OCVSS. I've gotten questions from people who are raising this as another instance of a service that we're providing that helps students who have disabilities and other special needs, and we're putting that on the chopping block. So I wondered if we could have a comment on that.
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, really appreciate the commentary. What we've had to do as staff is look at our model for our virtual schooling. We will have an offering at the secondary and elementary levels. What we've been able to do is integrate that into some of the physical sites to optimize the staffing of that rather than a separate group of staffing, although there will be some staffing, of course, who are working virtually in that context. But we have remobilized, again, considering our financial constraints, we've remobilized. So there is both an elementary and a secondary offering through 2 separate sites, Agincourt Public School and Sir Robert Borden High School, for our students. And those virtual programs will mirror as we move forward at elementary. And then I think at secondary over time as well, we'll mirror the offerings that we have in place in the physical sense, in the in-person sense. So again, it's been a restructuring of sorts to allow us to optimize our resources, knowing we've got the same pressures of the conversations we've had this evening.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, I've heard from constituents who are concerned about the changes to the Canterbury Dance Program. I understand that there will be a family information meeting on May 29th, but I guess I would like to hear more about the reasons for the changes and why specifically this wasn't brought to the board, as it's really a program change that's changing the classical and venture amalgamation.
Mr. Director.
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have the specifics on that in total. I do know it is a site-based set of operational considerations. I'll ask Superintendent Riddell to follow up also with a memo to members of the Board of Trustees, just so that you have a context with respect to the changes for that particular initiative. I apologize, I don't have all the specifics, and I want to make sure I don't get it wrong. I'll ask the Superintendent follow up via memo.
Would changes to a program like that normally be something that would have been brought to the board to discuss, or is that just considered operational?
I think if it was discontinuation, it would be brought to the board. I don't think that's the case here. I think the intent here is to actually enhance equity of access to the program, and that has a number of operational elements tied to it. So from my preliminary view of the discussion with the superintendent and what I've seen, I think it'll open greater access for our students as clients as an option for them at the secondary level. But again, I'll ask the superintendent to follow up with a memo with some of the detail.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
And I would just add that decisions around what courses are offered in our secondary schools and so on normally would not come come to trustees.
That's not a course, it's a program. It's different. Yeah.
And moving on, I have trustee Jenkins next.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Trustee Kaplan-Murphy. I had a question about the Canterbury dance program as well, so I'd like more information on it. Director, for you, parents are asking already, though, information about the grandfathering clause. When will the district be providing information on how to register for grandfathering and specifically for the cross-boundary transfers as well?
Director.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's a hot topic of interest in the communities. I'm very encouraged and excited by the interest we have, frankly, from our own parents, guardians, and caregivers, but those not currently in our district around the expanding of a dual track offering system-wide. It's been inspiring to see. We began to meet on the 14th of May, the day after the board decision on that front, to start to put pieces in place. It's very likely, and I'll ask Associate Director Reynolds to provide an update to the Board of Trustees as soon as we've got that in place, and I'll make a comment on that in a moment. We are looking to make sure, though, that the exemption provision for the elementary program review is separate from the regular cross-boundary transfer process, which might apply to other grades and other circumstances, other students. So we'll try to keep those separate. We are meeting on that front right now to establish criteria and a process for that. We'll get messaging out during the month of June so that we have something in place. It will likely be a process over the fall to have all decisions made before the end of the calendar year. Our planning department is looking at areas where and I don't know how to phrase this other than it's a no-brainer. There's plenty of space. This doesn't impact the sending or receiving school, and simply permitting those without having people go through a process. But other areas of the city, it may be a little bit more complicated. So where we can make the process as simple as possible for people, or no process at all, you can simply go to that school to enroll. We'll try to do that. That's what our planners are looking through right now. In a make a long story short, we're looking over the course of the month of June to at least signal out to the public a bit of how that will unfold, and we thank everyone for their patience. I know I appreciate Trustee Jenkins, the questions coming to trustees and coming to staff as well.
And I have one other question, though, and Trustee Kaplan-Murphy mentioned the immunization, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I did have a family reach out to me in panic because they had received notification that their child would be suspended from the school, but then they did not, and the school shared that if you hear from Ottawa Public Health that you need to update your scheduling, but they never did hear from the Ottawa Public Health because Ottawa Public Health did not have their updated mailing address. The family had moved. So I think we need to, I wonder if the school, and again, thank you, Trustee Kaplan-Murphy, the school has the updated mailing address. Can the schools not go back once they receive the information from OPH to redirect it back to the families to ensure that the families receive that information so that suddenly they're not receiving, your child is being suspended tomorrow?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Jenkins, a really good point on the operational back and forth between the home, the school, and Ottawa Public Health. What I would say there is if you've got any constituents or any parents, guardians, caregivers who have had interrupted communication from Ottawa Public Health, signaling what you're talking about. They've lost either track of the address or the connect, encouraging those families to go back to the school to say, look, I received an initial letter. I haven't received anything since. And then we'll do our best as staff to link the family to Ottawa Public Health in some capacity. I can appreciate the comment you're making. Numbers, addresses change rapidly. And I know Ottawa Public Health is doing their very best to stay as up to date as they can, but I realize that's a reality, that is scenario you gave. So we'll try to make that connect as best we can.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think also though in the initial information to families that to include that, please check that your updated information, mailing address, and if you're not receiving anything, double check, because if you know that you've moved, then you should be looking for that. So just reminders.
Absolutely, with the goal of minimizing interrupted schooling for us, absolutely.
Moving on then, I have trustee Lyra.
Thanks. So last week at our committee of the whole, we did not manage to get to all the items on our agenda. How was the decision made to not bring those agenda items back for this evening for discussion?
When we looked at it in terms of agenda planning, the decision was made to move those to the 3rd of June because we felt with 2 committee of the whole meetings in June, we should be able to manage that.
Okay. My second question is that earlier this school year, the board made a decision to find a trustee in violation of the code of conduct. I'm just looking to follow up to make sure that all of the commitments that were required under that have been filled.
They have not yet been completed, but they will be completed before September.
All right, thank you.
And no other hands on that. So that brings us, oh, trustee Dixon, go ahead, please. You're muted. You're muted, trustee Dixon.
Sorry about that. Through you, Chair. I guess my first question is, when it comes to the integrity commissioner, I thought before we do anything, it's supposed to come back to the board, but I was told that we don't have an integrity commissioner anymore. So, like, I'd like to know what happened to that, because that sort of affects, if you remember, like, I guess I don't want us to repeat the same thing that happened 3 years ago when we did not have an integrity commissioner and the code of conduct dragged on. And I'm afraid that the same thing might happen. So I guess 2 questions in one.
As of the 1st of January, the rules changed with regard to how code of conduct, board member code of conduct procedures work. Boards now are able to choose an integrity commissioner from among those who are qualified for that role on case-by-case basis, and I will ask staff if they could provide further clarification. A memorandum with all of the detail was provided to trustees in late April, early May, and there is also a new module on that from the Ontario Educational Services Corporation, which is accessible through the OPSPA webpage. But first I will go to staff just for the quick summary here.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. As you rightly stated, all of the details about how the new legislative process works are outlined in the memo. And so I would refer the trustee back to that memo. It's quite detailed in terms of the steps to be followed. If there are specific questions arising out of that memo, I think the trustee can send those questions, because I'm not sure specifically beyond referring back to that memo what else I can add at this point.
Trustee Dixon?
I guess it just seems that if we go back to the chair, and nothing against you, Chair, and this gets dragged on, we're really not accomplishing anything, because it's supposed to be completed within, I think I did read the memo, so thank you. I'm just wanting more clarification, because one says 20 days and one says 60 days. So I guess that's the clarification more of, because I think you just came back and said not till September. Like, that seems more than 60 days.
No, that you misunderstood which item I was talking about, and that was the sanctions that had previously been imposed, which will be completed by before September. But the other matter is the process relating to new code of conduct complaints that have come since the 1st of January.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
And
Thank
the
you.
rules are in effect for any new ones, but ones that were decided before Christmas, those are still outstanding in terms of completing all of the requirements.
Okay.
And other than that, I don't think I have anything more to add. Trustee Kaplan-Murth?
Yeah, I would like for the public to know how much money this school board has wasted on code of conduct, and not to mention the fact that it shows poor governance and the toxicity of this board. But how much has been spent on code of conduct, vexatious complaints over the last 3 years? And how could that money have instead gone to, for example, special education? And you're going to say, well, those are different buckets. But we spent a lot of time arguing that we don't have any money, and here we're talking about code of conduct complaints, most of which are vexatious and have been for the good part of 20 years. So as long as we're going to talk about code of conduct complaints, let's put that out there. I'd like an answer to that. I'd like the public to know exactly how much we have spent on legal bills and code of conduct processes over the last 3 years. That's number one. Number two is I'd like to know whether somebody who is still in a process of remediation is allowed to do something that causes harm that is part of the very thing that they are supposed to be getting remediation for. It seems to me like there are conditions of remediation that would include not doing a thing that causes the same kind of further harm. Is there an answer to that question that can be answered?
At this point, I do not have an answer to that question. With regard to the costs, I look to staff to provide that information.
Thank you. Well, I hope that the Ministry of Education will look into that as a governance issue at our school board.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you. Staff will go back. We don't have a number currently. We'll bring forward as part of the budgetary process, as part of the administration costs. We'll have that included.
And at this point, I have no more speakers under new business, which brings us to the end of our agenda. I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.